With us right now, of course, Mike DeCourcy, the Hall of Famer from Big Ten Network, as well as Sporting News. Mike, looking at the Big Ten, man, it had been kind of a mess, really. You didn't know what Michigan direction they were going. Illinois was looking wonky. Indiana looking wonky. All of a sudden, we've got a Rutgers team that's rising. It was like, what the hell is this? You've got a Penn State team that's rising. You're like, what the hell's going on? But then all of a sudden, Wisconsin came in to Bloomington, obviously shorthanded without Wall, who is their leader. Indiana looked really good. And, yeah, they were shorthanded, but it was more how Indiana looked, because they had not looked that way. They had not done some of the things that they were doing in that game. And it just was should have been a confidence builder for them that they can take forward. But it's part of what makes this league so damn tough. Like I said, other than Minnesota, which I don't mean to count them out because they have won a game, but they got lucky with a bad call in that game. Other than that, though, I don't think there's a team that can't beat somebody that they're playing, and I don't know that I've said that before.
Well, I think in 2020, the year we didn't have a tournament, we were 12 deep in the Big Ten in NCAA tournament contenders.
Yeah.
As late as like the third week of February, and then Minnesota tailed off a little bit. But that was an unbelievable year. And I think Purdue that year, sort of maybe probably wouldn't have made it at the end. But we were looking at 10 selection week after Indiana beat Nebraska that night, the last Big Ten tournament game that season. That sort of locked it up for IU. And so we were looking at 10 that year. And that would have been only the second team ever to get double digits. So again, I think this is a good solid year for the conference, and it's a really good year in the sense that it wasn't expected to have a good season. And I guess if you judge it by the polls or whatever, people are gonna look at the top 25, and I don't look at it, so I don't know. But I think there probably is only one team left in there now with Purdue, and probably no one else ranked. Maybe Rutgers is getting there. I don't know.
Rutgers is 23.
Yeah, so that's good for them. But it's not a deep league in terms of high-end seeds, but it's a really competitive league, and it's a league that will get they'll get the most or near the most NCAA tournament bids this season, and people will complain again because they'll all be seeded, as I said before. A lot of them will be seeded in the second, in 8, 9 or below. And they'll probably fall out pretty quickly. And people say, well, look, they didn't burn these bids. Well, look, somebody's got to fill out the field or we don't have games, And so if you're put into a 12 seed or 11 seed, you're supposed to lose. So don't let that affect how you view this season for the Big Ten if they do that, because it's about, having a good, solid competition. And I don't know if we're going to have a great league champion race, but we're going to have a really interesting race for seeding in the Big Ten tournament and for tournament bids. Because I am giving away secrets. I took Ohio State out of my bracket for this week. Obviously, they're a team that thinks they should be in and wants to be in and should be in and all that. Based on the way they played in November, December, that's interesting. Can they get back on the right track and make a run at a bid?
And that's a tough team, and that's a good team.
Yeah. I mean, Bryce Sensabaugh, one of the best freshmen in the country, but they've run into some. When I say chemistry issues, I don't mean necessarily that they're but like on court. The flow isn't there. It's not there. I mean, that Minnesota game, they had 5 assists in the whole game. 5 assists. Like that, the ball isn't moving the way it used to move. It's sticking now. They're making lesser decisions, but you can get yourself out of that. It happens all the time. And so getting themselves out of that is part of what makes the next 7 weeks fun. And they're not they're obviously not alone in that. Illinois right now, all good, but last Sunday on Beyond, our first episode, we're talking about, hey, what's wrong with Illinois?
Right.
That's what makes this league fun, is that you're one game away from what's wrong with them and one game away from, oh man, they're winning it all.
Well, speaking of the Illini, that's the opponent for Indiana next up. That Indiana gets that challenge now, and on the road over in Champaign. So Indiana coming off of a game in which they looked good, played well. Now they have to take that onto the road, which is going to be a very, very important test for this team.
Yeah, really tough challenge too, because Illinois can be many things as a team. And one of their problems has been that they haven't always been able to know what the right thing to be at that particular time is. They can be a terrific deep shooting team. They've been that in games. They did that to UCLA, if I remember correctly. They can play in the low post with Dane Danger. That's a guy that can finish with either hand, has great physicality, hard to keep off the block, but they have games where they can't get the ball to him. They can be a downhill driving team with Darren Shannon. He's had terrific games. Matthew Meyer has games where he looks like a pro, and other games where you don't know, wait, is he here tonight? So that's one of the interesting things about this game is that you have to figure out what they're set up to do for that night, and then you have to figure out how to guard it. If I'm Illinois, my first thought is, with no race, I'm going inside. I'm building Dage in that game because it puts Trace in a position where he has to defend more than you want him to. He's got more responsibility even there than he ordinarily does because of that. He did a great job on Saturday helping out with Stephen Crowell and made Stephen Crowell, who came into that game with 122 and 118. So basically 2 20-point games in a row in Wall's absence. And he just disappeared. And that was the biggest difference in the game. But Danger's a totally different player. But he again, super skilled and got all the tools, but is one who can be there and not be there at a particular time. And so I think it makes it a very interesting defensive challenge for the Hoosiers.
And one of the things, you just talked about having team chemistry. And one of the things that you pointed out when we talked a few weeks ago is part of the reason Indiana has struggled is because they haven't been at full strength. And we've talked at length about how coming into the season, Xavier Johnson was a big key for Indiana's success. Then you lose a veteran guy like Race Thompson. And we understand that Wisconsin was without Tyler Wall, but sometimes it also takes a little bit of time for that chemistry to gel, for those guys to get together, especially on the defensive side of the court. To me, what I saw from Indiana defensively, even though you mentioned Wisconsin might be one of the easier teams to defend, that's something that I'm wondering if that might be their aha moment, where
yes,
at times this season, they have not played the kind of defense we saw from them a season ago. So if they have that aha moment where, you know what, we may not be shooting the ball well, but if we defend the way we did against Wisconsin, we can beat anybody in this league, or at least be in the game with anybody in this league. I think that's the hope moving forward. I mean, do you see that same sort of outlook for Indiana?
Well, I think that's the key, and that's why that Illinois game is so interesting because, again, like I said, they propose so many different defensive challenges depending on the night. And so you have to have a great game plan, and you have to have the ability to take away multiple things from that team. Like I said, the downhill drives with Shannon, the low post game with Danger. You have to watch them on the perimeter. You have to be worried about Meyer. I think there are nights you can make Matthew Meyer not into it. Let's say you can take his his verve away. I think you can do that to him if you really defend him well, and I think that's a key to them, because when he's on, they're really, really hard to beat.
Yeah,
because he can do so many things as an offensive player. But when he was at Baylor like 2 years ago when they won the title, he was a big part of that, because he came in, he gave them a huge punch. He has so many different ways that he can get the ball into his shot that he's hard to guard. But then last year, with that platform, and then all the great guards leave, and you got enough guards that you can get they can get the ball to you, and so all of a sudden here comes this opportunity. It didn't really happen for him, and so you wonder, like, okay, how is he the kind of guy that's going to just chew glass to get through a game and be great? And so that, I still think you see that from him from time to time. But when he's on, I think he's one of the 6 or 7 best players in the Big Ten on his good days. Just so dangerous. So IU has to have a way to guard that, and they have to have a way to guard the low post, and they have to have a way to guard Shannon. And I think what you have to do is you have to isolate them. You have to make it hard for them to get into their actions. That's where the on-ball defense, and obviously if you have a guy like Xavier, it really helps. And can you get that from Jalen? I think that's not really his thing. He's big, long, he's agile, he gets in the passing lanes very well, he's alert, but he's not a bulldog on the defensive end. It's not his thing. So I'll be very curious to see what kind of defensive game plan they have for the Illini, because with your limited team, without Race to help out down low, you have 5 fewer fouls, and a lot less ability to defend. Race isn't just 5 extra fouls. He's a terrific defender, terrific defensive rebounder. But those 5 fouls you're losing are huge when you're going up against a team that has that low post presence.